Welcome to our EforAll Deep Dive. I'm Deborah Gallant, the EforAll Berkshire County Executive Director, and running the tech for me is Allison
Schmidt. I'm the Program Manager for EforAll Berkshire County.
And you're going to meet our presenter, Aron, in just a minute, but I just want to sort of set things up so you guys know what's going on here. I'm going to share my screen. Just a few slides, I promise. All right. So today's deep dive is about surveying your customers. It's not a one-shot deal. And Aron and I sort of brainstormed that title together. We know that all of you went through the EforAll Accelerator, or mostly all of you, and you went through surveys. But here's the thing, you probably thought about it as that thing you had to cross off your list so that your program manager didn't yell at you. And Aron and I are both of the belief that it can be such a valuable business tool on an ongoing basis. So if we can take it off of your to-do list and make you stop thinking about it as something you have to do and something you might want to do and engage in, people understanding what it is that they love about you so you can do more of it and do it better, hopefully it will be valuable to you. So again, these are monthly programs that we run, the deep dives. Aron Witkamper is going to be our guest presenter today, and he actually has very few slides and is going to have a really lively conversation with us. I never do a program that does not thank the sponsors. These are the EforAll Berkshire County sponsors. If they did not fund us, we would not be here presenting this great information to you. And I believe most of the people on here know what EforAll is, but in case you don't, we're all about empowering people to start their own businesses. These statistics are actually almost a year out of date, and I expect some new ones with over 1,000 businesses soon started by EforAll alumni, including many of the lovely people on this call. So these deep dives are a product of my watching my cohorts finish the program, the 12 weeks of the accelerator, and then go look around and go, now what? Because there is so much else you need to know to run a business. And I have taken it on myself to create those programs for you with these once-a-month webinars. Next month, I just did a debrief with Robert Braith, who's going to present LinkedIn for small business success. So if you go look at your LinkedIn profile and it is not up to date, this is the one for you. Or if you've never used LinkedIn to try to build your partnerships, collaborations, find customers, establish your reputation, it's going to be a terrific one. I happen to really love LinkedIn, and it's been great for me and my business. And then we're going to talk about your business strategy in June. So we're always doing these. And I went and I pulled some of the titles of previous ones. So if you've missed these, they are well worth your going back and checking them out. And they're all archived on the eforall.org/virtual workshops page. We've had over 1,500 views of our getting certified as a minority and woman-owned business. If that's something that's interesting to you, this is a great way to learn this information. So our format for today is I'm going to hand it over shortly to Aron Witkamper from Cape Cod, who is the visiting guest specialist for Cape Cod and Berkshire County to teach our survey class. So when I wanted to talk about surveys, he was the guy I ran to. So he's going to do a pretty short presentation, just a few slides, go for maybe 45 minutes to an hour, and then we really want to open it up to Q&A. So this is really your chance to have a group consultation anyway, with Aron leading the way, talking about how you can find out how surveys and learning from your customers can help your business. And we don't record the question and answers at the end, so you don't have to worry about your question being immemorialized. And next month, Robert has said that he will look at your LinkedIn profile with you if you want and critique it and make suggestions, which is great, but you probably don't want that recorded for posterity for everyone to watch. So that's why we formatted this way. An hour of learning followed by a half an hour of Q&A. And I need to remind you all that the Cape Cod participants are going to have a separate meeting afterwards if you want to stay on. I think Amanda has sent you a Zoom so you know how to find that. But if there's any questions, Allison and Amanda, who I think is joining us, Kai will be joining us, can get you that. So I am going to stop sharing and just do a setup for Aron. He sent me his bio and it was like, oh, there's no way I'm going to give it justice. So I'm going to let him introduce himself and tell you kind of how he came to be such a great friend of EforAll and his background in surveying and connecting with customers. And then you're going to hand off to the presentation. So without further ado, Aron Witkamper.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much. So it's glad to be here. So I've been with EforAll for about 4 years now, and I've been a mentor, and I've led the session on doing surveying for customers. This will be, I think, the 3rd year I've been doing that, and it's something that I really enjoy because it's something that I do in my daily business. So what I do is I am vice president of platform support and customer success at an insurtech in Boston. This is my 3rd startup now, and they've all been young startups, and I start up the customer support divisions of those, build them out, scale them out, and as part of that, it is monthly meetings with each and every one of our customers to, understand their needs and what they're, what they expect out of us and what they desire and how we can best serve that. So I truly live this every day, and it's, something that I'm passionate about. So I definitely want to bring it to, how we can help improve your businesses from that aspect as well. And so glad to do that. So let me share my screen here. And can you see my screen?
Yep.
Excellent. All right.
Aron, it's doing that thing it did before where we see the next slide as well, though.
All right. So give me just a second. Let's try
Not that
this
that's
again.
not an interesting way to see it, but
How about this one?
much better.
All right. All right. So the title of this one is, surveying your customers is not just a one-shot deal. So, as Deborah and I were talking about this and coming up with an idea of how to present this, one of the things that I really noticed this last round after I led the session for this cohort was something that I had noticed before, which is it is viewed as a task and just another thing to check off of your list, or it's an assignment that you have to do. And everyone gets caught up in how the surveys are formatted, what the wording is for each of them, but loses the true concept of why you're doing that survey. And so, the true concept of why you're doing that survey is, to start with the end in mind. What are those questions that you need to have answered? So, on the left, I've got, remember, it's an iterative process. I don't have that viewed here as an iterative process, but this is the entire process, but it goes on and on and on, because no matter what it is, you're trying to identify what that problem is. And that problem can be, it's either a problem you have, or it's a problem that your customers have, or it's just something that you have in mind that you're wanting to do. You need to identify what that is and then develop that research plan. And that's going to be, how am I going to research it? Who am I going to research it through? What is the information that I need? That's going to be the most important part. So, some of the things that we were seeing before is, as when in going through the EforAll process, it is, the format of the question is past behavior predicts future, behavior, and all of that. But you concentrate on that, but forget that I'm trying to find out something for my business. And so you want to always think, what is it that I'm trying to find for my business, and then how do I get to that? Like, what is the ultimate way that I can ask a question, either in person or on on social media, or through some other survey format? How can I get that information? So then you need to conduct that research. You need to ask those questions. It's also not just surveying. I mean, market analysis is using any source you have out there to try to get those answers for you. So it could be, researching what your competition is doing, researching what people in other markets that are similar to yours are doing that, have gotten to the endpoint that you're trying to reach. So trying to conduct that research is not just doing surveys. It's that whole total market research. And then you need to
Aron,
analyze it. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me start off with, if it's going okay, I don't know what okay means for any specific business. How do you figure out what questions you even want to ask? It's almost like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, why would a doing well enough restaurant or retail business or artisan business want to stop and do a survey?
100%. So, one of the things that you need to think about is if you're staying stagnant, you're never going to expand, you're never going to excel, and you can't stay stagnant because nothing works in a vacuum, right? So the world evolves, the world changes, technology changes, people's taste changes, people's taste in taste in art, or taste in foods, or styles change. So you always have to continually make yourself different in order to match what people are wanting to spend the money for. And even if you're in a specialized business, so you're working in your business is in using materials that are sourced from a specific market. Well, sometimes where you source that from has changed. Political changes have happened, and so you need to source it from somewhere else, but you're still wanting to source it from somewhere unique or that serves a certain purpose. So, all of those reasons you need to continually change and keep an eye for what you would want to change. Does anybody have thoughts or questions about that, or thoughts of how that's affected your business itself?
You don't have to wait till the end to ask your questions. If someone wants to
Yeah.
contribute, we love a conversation.
So, the next part is then analyze and report those. So reporting doesn't mean you have to report it out to a board, because you don't necessarily have a board, but it's reporting it to yourself to try to say, does this fit what I thought? Does this change where my mind was going for this? And then do I need to pivot, based off of those results, and then take that action. And then as an iterative process, you take an action, you measure it again, and then you take action again, and then you measure it and you take action again. So that's where it goes into an iterative process. Is there questions about that, or concerns or thoughts that maybe I missed on that? Yeah.
What does iterative mean? I really don't know.
Sorry. Yeah, it happens over and over and over again. So it's not just a one-time thing. It keeps happening over and over. So here's some market research failures, and I just grabbed a few that I could think off the top of my head, and some that I've used in the past in my examples. So Crystal Pepsi, for those of you who are old enough to remember Crystal Pepsi when it came out, Crystal Pepsi tasted just like Pepsi. But they were trying to go along with this health craze of, if it's clear, then it's got to be more healthy. And but it confused everybody, because about a year after it came out, everybody was confused because it tastes the same, but I'm spending more money for it, and it's clear. Is it actually like a lemon lime thing, or is it actually like Pepsi? It was just weird for people. So it was a failure because it really confused people. And then New Coke, about the same time, Coke decided, hey, we're going to come out with this new flavor of Coke, and we're going to bring that out and introduce it. And they introduced it side by side with Coke for, I don't know, 9 months to a year or so. And then they pulled old Coke, original Coke, and all they were selling was new Coke. And it just fell flat on its face. The part of that is they didn't take into consideration the nostalgia of Coke. Like, people liked Coke, like Coke was their go-to. And then you pull that, and like you've only got new. They didn't take all of that stuff into consideration. So some market research and understanding that market research and knowing the right questions to ask could have really helped out in that situation. And a lot of this is not that they didn't do the market research, it's that they didn't understand it, or they didn't ask the right questions, or they didn't take into consideration the nostalgia of a product, you know? So those are thoughts that you need to have too, you know, like if I'm introducing a new line, does it match with what I had? And does it actually fit a niche or something that somebody's wanting from us? Kodak is another one. I mean, Kodak has really just, you know, Kodak used to be it. Like it was the tops. If you were doing photography, like it was all Kodak. And they did not keep up with what, you know, the trends were with going digital. And they ignored a lot of the market research that was out there. They did it, they just ignored it and didn't pay attention to what it was. So, you know, again, it's they did the research, but they didn't pay attention to what it means and how it can help them. And Arch Deluxe, this was another one where McDonald's came out with a sandwich that was more sophisticated, and it was more for, you know, trying to go towards, do they want to go to a more sit down restaurant than a fast food, you know, serving that type of thing. And they were just blind to their target market. Their target market is the people that, I know everything on that McDonald's menu. When I go up there, I know exactly what's on there. You know, when you have to say, am I going to sit in front of a McDonald's menu for 5 minutes while I look at it and decide what I want? No, nobody does that. Everybody knows what's on there, you know? So they totally ignored that aspect of it. And it just wasn't, you know, that they were blind to what people really wanted. So again, these are some market research failures that they either got that feedback and didn't listen to it, or didn't go from, you know,
Aron,
didn't understand it.
Emily has a question. Go ahead, Emily.
Hey, Emily.
Hi, I'm wondering if you have any suggestions for ways to kind of be aware of potential market failures and avoid them, or guide your audience, your customers to the new thing. So I have a kombucha company. It's a drink, and I'm switching from bottles to cans because they're cheaper. My wholesalers want them, and to scale, I kind of need to. But I did a couple quick surveys of sort of a small group of customers, and every single one of them said they preferred bottles to cans. But
interesting,
all of my wholesalers want cans, and my bottle price is getting prohibitive.
Did you ask why they like the bottles compared to a can?
They can close them. They
Okay.
the old time nostalgia feel. And some people think that there's a taste difference between aluminum and glass.
What about plastic? Did you look at that?
No, plastic isn't an option. It doesn't, it's, so the kombucha is pressurized, and plastic won't hold pressure. And it does impart a taste.
And what about, so I know there are resealable options for cans that are being developed. Are there resealable options for cans, or does the pressure, because it's fermented, right? That's what kombucha is
Yep.
Fermented. So that fermentation process still happens after it's been sold.
Yes.
Because I was wondering if that would be an accessory of, you know, selling it in a can, you get, you know, a can saver, you know, if that was
considered that for exactly that reason. Yeah.
And
yeah.
was it a, I will not buy it if it is not in, you know, that type of container, or was it a, gosh, I'd really prefer it in that type of container?
Very, very small minority to no one said they wouldn't buy it.
And what is the competition doing in that?
There's a small but growing trend towards cans. It's matching the craft beer industry. And if we follow that to its conclusion, all kombucha will soon be in cans.
Then I think you don't really have an option. But now you need to find your marketing, your marketing aspect to that, right? You need to find your niche, as far as we're leading the way in what all others are going towards in this industry, and find a way to market that appropriately.
Yeah, you need to find a positive spin on it.
Yeah. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, you were asking the questions. It sounds like you were asking the right questions. Like, why are you wanting to do that? And what is everybody else doing? So now, what are your thoughts or conclusions on coming out of that?
That it will be a conversation with my customers, but they're not going to leave me over it.
Okay. And can you target off of that and be, like, we are leading the way, and we're doing it for all the right reasons? Is there a way to make it that way? Are
There is.
kombucha drinkers of the type that you're saying, I'm leading the way towards this because it is more environmentally friendly, or it is more, that type of thing? Does that make
That would
sense?
shine. Yes, that would definitely resonate with a lot of my customers. So, okay.
So I mean, that's the type of things I would look at. So then identify some more of those types of things, and then throw those out there and see what sticks and hits the wall with folks and what resonates with them. I think. Any other ideas or thoughts? I love this. I love the the individual questions. So
Go ahead.
I gotta jump in here because I wouldn't drink kombucha if I couldn't see it out of the clear bottle. And then we went to San Diego. The only options in San Diego are all in cans, and we love going to get craft kombucha and all that, but cans is it. So I became a convert, right? I'm like, oh, this is the new thing. So I just feel bad for whoever has to set that in their region, like set the tone.
Thank you.
Seeing the bits and the stuff at the bottom, I thought I needed to see it, and now we're like, oh, cans are where it's at.
And my more colorful flavors are definitely my most popular. If there's a red option, people will buy it, and you're not going to be able to see them.
I know that, Aaron, I know this is for surveying customers, but if it's not a competitor, if like the San Diego craft brewing scene is incredible for kombucha and for beer, I mean, for everything, but cider, they're big. But would you ever recommend trying to like reach out to someone in your industry to survey of how they made that transition, or is that weird?
100%. To me, and that's something that I have, I've always used during this entire process with EforAll, is small business owners love to help small business owners. And especially if you're not a direct competitor, and like if you're not a direct competitor within your market, but you've got a similar type of market out there, then absolutely 100%. Like as with surveying, and you're surveying your customers and you're saying past performance predicts their future behavior. Same thing with business. If somebody else has already spent the pain and the suffering of going through something, find out what they learned and then, use it. Keep in mind, just because it worked for them in their market doesn't mean it will work for you in your market. You do need to be cognizant of that fact, but 100%, I'm always for finding a business that is going through the same things with you and finding what they've, already done that. If it feels weird, sometimes it's the right thing to do. And Taiki, I think I told you this, when I first met you, was, I was a videographer in college, and it was, if you feel weird getting the shot, it's probably the right shot. It's very much of that type of thing, right? So, that absolutely 100%.
I actually think in the chat, we had this suggestion, which I think is perfectly legit. Maybe you become a premium brand and stick to the glass, and it may be everyone else is zigging and you zag. I mean, there's some, there is an argument to be made to do that and tell the wholesalers stuff it and just raise the price.
Yep. Or do a select sort of limited edition flavors.
Your colorful ones.
Yeah.
That's what I was just thinking too.
Yeah. And I do have, so I've got a 16-ounce bottle, which is what I would be replacing, and a 32-ounce bottle. And I'm keeping the 32 ounce. It's like my growler. And that is, I'd get a much better margin on that. So that's worth keeping. But the 16-ounce bottles are at this point not worth keeping when there's a can option price-wise.
Yeah, no, and I think you have to wrap it in education, like better for the environment, or same great ingredients in a eco-friendly container. I mean, you just need to position it. I want to I'm so glad we were able to help you a little bit, or help you think it through, Emily. Aron, I have to tell you, I look here and I say, if Coke and Pepsi and McDonald's, the biggest consumer brands, messed up these things, why do I think that I'm going to be able to figure out research that's going to help my business? I mean, they have market research specialists, people with PhDs in this thinking about it, and they still messed up.
Uh-huh.
How can I learn from this?
So, the way that I look at that, because I've been thinking about this too, and I've thought about, like, the other options are like the Microsoft Zune, which was, the competitor to the iPod. And, Microsoft was huge, and they had that, and it failed. And I think the thing is you have to understand that you have to do the research anyway, and you will find that as you went through your original survey for EforAll, for those of you who went through the survey course, and you did your survey, you obviously had to find something that went against what you thought, and you had to have something that surprised you. One of the things that I have found is that almost nobody goes through their survey and doesn't have to pivot in one form or the other. There's something that comes out of that.
If they paid attention to the answers.
If you paid attention to the answers and you didn't ignore them. But the survey that I typically use to use as an example is very important to me, because it was so well thought out, and it covered so many things that the person that the entrepreneur that created that survey had such a target market in mind. Like, their assumptions were like they thought they had it nailed, and they did not. Like, it just blew them out of the water. So you have to just trust what you can find, and that's also why it's an iterative process. You're going to have failures. That's part of, like, failure is the biggest teacher, right? So do it, take a shot, and if it fails, that's fine. Gather yourself by the bootstraps and try it again. But know that data is going to be your guide, but it's not going to be your be all end all, because sometimes you can have the best data in the world, and it's just going to fail you, because people are people, and things change. So let me move back to reasons, not move back to, let me move on to, let me go back, sorry. Reasons we need to continuously survey. Like product market fit, which was like the first thing that we did the survey for in EforAll, is you're trying to say, okay, do my assumptions, I'm testing my assumptions. Does what I have to offer, is that what people are willing to pay for? And then, the secondary part of that is, how am I going to market to those people? So that's where you're trying to find out, is that, my assumption of who is going to be buying these, the right people? But it's also going to help you figuring out, where do I market, or how do I market that? And it goes along to, what Emily is trying to find out with, her kombucha. Like, how do I market that? Based off of my results here, is that going to change my way I do that? Or adding a new product line. I mean, this is, again, if we use Emily's example, it kind of fits into all of these almost. So you've got, adding a new product line. She could be adding that new product line of the growlers, and that's your bottle versus this. And are you willing to pay for a bottle, or are you okay paying that lesser price and getting it in a can, and not being able to reseal it? Does it lead you to pivoting and saying, hey, maybe I'll find a resealable can that is actually, new to the market that not everybody else is using, and I can try that too. Innovate and try to do that from that. A new location is really interesting, because as you grow, as you scale, and you're trying to find new locations to either relocate your entire business to, or you're trying to find wholesalers in a different market, what does that mean? And if I'm going to market X, is my, cost that, or my cost to that wholesaler going to cover what it would take to get it to that new location, and that type of thing. But then also pivoting, and understanding, is what I'm offering what people are willing to pay for? And what do I need to pivot in order to make this so that I can make money off of it still and not lose money? And then pricing all the way around. You know, if I have to increase how much that bottle of kombucha is going to cost, you know, to go into a growler, and I call it a specialty line, are you willing to spend more money for it because A, it's a specialty line, B, ooh, it's got a pretty color, but you don't know that not all the others are, and you know, C, it's, you know, it's in a glass bottle, which costs more anyway. So those are all types of things that if you keep, you know, surveying continuously, you're going to find all of these different things and identify anything. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
Kimberly wants to ask about pricing.
Awesome.
So I've thought about pricing, and I did a survey before, and the way I approached it was to ask, what would you be willing to spend for a premium candy product? And that's
Okay.
how I ended up asking it, and I didn't think it was the right question. I don't know that I received the right answer. By the way, I make coconut caramels. They're made with 100% organic coconut and no other additives. So I know it's already a premium product. I also know that there's other premium caramels that sell for $1 a piece. So I understand that piece, but asking the question in a survey is always a challenge for me.
So do you think it was asking how much they're willing to, or is it how much have they paid in the past, or is it specific to the type of product? Like if it were, you know, something without that premium coconut in it, or, you know, only with that, would they be willing to spend more knowing that it was a lesser good? Does that make sense?
I do, but then there's another like twist. There's always many layers to my questions. The other thing is the package size.
Mhm.
So I just found a manufacturer to increase my candies. So now I'm selling less candies, but they're bigger and then a little bigger size. And I'm going to still sell it for the same price as I was before. And hopefully the market accepts it. It's kind of
Why wouldn't you raise the price if it was bigger?
It's a little bit bigger, but because I had a 10-pack and now I'm changing it to an 8-pack. I'm also in a new market too. And
what were you finding the resistance was, and how do you know what the resistance was?
well, foodies will pay for anything, especially if it's gluten-free. So then there's different markets that don't want to pay. It was just, I guess it was trying to justify in my own head that I was charging the right amount and that maybe I should be charging more. I don't know.
So as part of that, were you researching, you know, the market and your competition, or were you researching based off of your specific product and where you were trying to sell it?
So I did look at the market. Nobody actually sells what I sell. So that was kind of hard. And my ingredients are more money as well. And then I was in the EforAll and trying to figure out what questions to put in my survey within the little window of time that I had to conduct that survey. So that's the way that my mentors helped me figure out that question. I wish it would have been a better one because honestly, I don't think I received the data that I wanted to work with from that question. That's
What are your sales channels, Kimberly? How are you selling?
Right now, farmers markets and internet. Not ready for wholesale yet.
So when you're having those farmers markets, are you having conversations with the folks that come by, even if they're not buying?
I try to. Yep.
Because
And it's a weird thing. Can I just say this weird thing is like, do you think I'm charging too much money, or how much would you pay? You know, that's just like an awkward question for me to ask people in person. I feel more comfortable kind of putting it in a survey, but I'm still not asking the right question.
I think part of it is, you know, what's interesting is, and you know, one of the hardest parts about being an entrepreneur is really just putting yourself out there, right? And you know, one of those questions is, as they walk away, it's, are you walking away because you're not interested in the product? Are you not interested in buying because you're just browsing and you were interested and it looked interesting and you stopped by? What caught your eye? You know, even if they're not buying, what caught your eye? What made you stop by? You know, of all of the, 50 different, tables that were here, what brought you by? That's something. Any bit of information I can get out of somebody, I'll take. And, part of that is, trying to find that right fit is also one of the questions that I always ask everybody that goes through EforAll is, what is that hill that you're willing to die on? And it sounds to me like that hill that you're willing to die on is, it is going to be that premium coconut with only the coconut as the, as the sweetener or whatever it is, that's going to be your hill, right? Like,
Yeah.
Regardless of price, that's what I'm going to do because that's what my differentiator is. So at that point, you've got to try to figure out how to market that, I guess, correctly. And so that leads me, right into, and we don't have to move on. I'm just, showing you an example. This is what Deborah and I were talking about at the very beginning is you have to begin with that end in mind. Like, what is it that you need to know? And that's how we format that survey. Those are the questions we need to ask. Like, we get so tied up in how are we wording it? What do our mentors say to do? But if you're not truly getting to the information you need at the end of it, you're not asking the right questions. So Kimberly, what are some of the things that you didn't get like out of your survey? Like, if you had, and you do, a chance to do your survey again, what is it you would ask? What information do you want that you didn't get? Do you know?
No, I don't.
That's
Because I
the
asked
problem,
if
right?
they, honestly, I gave them some, canned answers, $5, $5 to $10, over $10, or there's no limit to what I would pay for a premium product. And, really nice was a lot of people took that answer, that they would pay it no matter what, if it was a premium product. So that made me feel good. That there was a big range of the answers as well.
I think, the way that I hear that worded, and also the way that you're saying, that made me feel good, makes me think that maybe they're not willing to pay for it, but they're willing to say, I'm willing to pay for it. Because in my mind, I'm willing to pay for a premium product, but it truly depends. What are the other extenuating circumstances? Like, for me, sometimes I'm willing to pay more for a Tiffany piece of sterling silver than I would if I went to go buy a piece of sterling silver somewhere else, because I know if I bought it from Tiffany, I'm going to get that extra service. I know that I can bring it back to any Tiffany anywhere in the world and they'll, exchange it and I'll get it next day and all of that. There's other times where I'm willing to pay $100 cheaper for a piece of sterling silver jewelry because of X, Y, or Z. And it's an example like that where, what have you spent in the past versus what are you willing to? But that's my thoughts. I'd love to hear other people's thoughts on this, because I think
Kimberly, what I think I would start with is, if you can put yourself back in the beginning of the EforAll program where you use that as your cloak for why you were asking the questions, right? So if you see somebody, I'm walking by your farmer's market, I come back, I come and look at your things, and then I keep walking on. If you stop me and said, excuse me, this is a really new business, I'm just getting started, and I noticed that I engaged with you, you looked at it, we talked, but you decided not to buy. Can I just ask you a few more questions about it? I absolutely would be delighted to tell you. And the answer for me is, if I was going to someone's house where they were gluten-free and cared about that, I would buy that as a gift. It's great, but I can eat anything. So I buy junky chocolate because I don't value it for myself. But if I'm going to someone's house, so you would get more information from me. And I also like to support new and women-owned businesses. So maybe that's part of your message, and engaging with someone is going to help uncover that. And I think you just need to get comfortable with that, because I think there's so much information to gather. And if somebody has stopped and had a friendly conversation with you, they will answer these questions and be honest.
And especially if they feel no obligation from it. And that's like, down here in the green, it's the conversation versus a questionnaire. To me, anytime you have that opportunity to have a conversation with someone, you can get so much more information out of that. And if you're willing to make yourself uncomfortable for a few moments of something that you'll never see that person again, but you may get a lot of information out of them, those questions are awesome. And especially of the, hey, it caught your eye to come over here. I have no obligation, you have no obligation to buy. I'm not making you feel bad. I'm trying to just learn for myself as to, what it was that caught your eye so that I know, and then what was the prohibiting factor from buying it. And if you present it of that type of nature, those questions are much easier to have. But I'm also kind of a brash guy when it comes to some things like that, where I have no problems asking asking those questions.
I mean, this is me and Aron. We have big personalities. I'm interested in some of the folks who might not think that they're natural extroverts like us. How would you feel about this? What advice do you have for Kimberly about this? Go ahead, Monica.
I have two things. The question you were just talking about is we did print out some abbreviated surveys with 3 questions, and we put them in a pile on our table at festivals, and we pointed them out because I don't want to have that conversation. I am not going to say, you looked at this art, you said you loved it, but you didn't buy it. Give us your money. No way. But I did have a survey for people that engage, and they were sending out whether they bought something or not. I used that line. We just took a business class. We're getting some feedback from the public. If you have a minute or two, just fill that out. No obligation. You don't even have to put your name on it. And we got some awesome information in that way. But Kimberly, your original question made me think of something that was really helpful for us about how do you ask questions about pricing? What we found, and what I know to be true about pricing questions, is that I think you should be specific on the location. So for example, when Candace and I go to a farmer's market and we walk up to a table, we're buying it. Honestly, I don't even think about the price. It's the person, their product, the presentation. We come home with like a $12 jam. If we really did, the two from they were French. So in the grocery store, if I see a $12 jam in a grocery store, no fucking way, right? That's ridiculous. Who would ever pay $12 for a jar of jam? And online, it's even different. So we changed our pricing questions for people buying art, and it was really different. And we did all past stuff. What's the most you have spent on a piece of art when you've met the artist in person at a gallery or at a festival or at an event, versus online or versus someone else's shop where the shop owner doesn't. So the price changes. So if you're trying to get pricing information from your surveys, I'm just going to suggest how much have you spent at a farmer's market? How much have you spent at a grocery store or even a specialty market? And then the online questions, usually they're looking for a bargain, in my experience. But
Very
that's
interesting. Thanks, Monica.
Yeah.
That's actually huge, and something that I guess it's one of those things that you kind of know, but you don't really think about. And it's true. And it's also very interesting, art versus a service versus a product that's not art, because art is so subjective. And, there are, to me, I see a print of, the tomato can, right? And like, I can buy a print of that tomato can for $4, online, versus if I were back in the 70s or whatever, and I met him and, he, presented it to me and I saw that, would I spend, $800,000 for that? Could be, I don't know, but that's where that's also subjective, compared to, a piece of chocolate. I think I agree wholeheartedly with the different scenarios of, if I met you in person, I know you're making it and I'm buying it here, would I pay more for it? Probably, absolutely. And if I'm going online, I'm trying to find a cheaper deal, that's what I go online for, but if I go into a specialty shop where I'm not necessarily going to meet you, Kimberly, but I'm going to know that it was made and it was distributed specifically to you, I may spend a higher quality or higher than if I went to Stop and Shop, saw the same product. I would expect to spend less for it in Stop and Shop for some reason, because it's not necessarily a specialty store. So, does your pricing change based off of those scenarios? And does that equal out to the same amount of money for you in the end is interesting too.
Well, that's like that's like a completely different place to go because of your pricing is different in different locations. I've heard about that, and I'm not. Is that going to be a deep dive at some point, Deborah?
It can be, but I do think the thing that I would say is a huge takeaway here, Kimberly, is that price insensitivity is connected to them wanting to do business with you. So the more that you can make your display woman owned, artisan, I would love for you to be dressed in an outfit that says I'm the chocolate maker, so they know that you're not just shilling for a company, but they're connecting with you as a chocolate artisan, and that means that Monica and Candace are coming home with a $12 thing of jam or a $25 bag of chocolate because they're not even going to think about it. They're engaging with you, and you might even convince me that it was worth it, even though I don't usually buy that stuff.
And I always think back to my grandmother, and my grandmother was one who always took the bus trips everywhere, and toured the U.S. On bus tours and all this, and always had so many things that I met, the person that made this, I went to the farm and saw where this was done, and those things she was willing to spend whatever for. And even if it ended up being crap, like it was like, no, they took the made in China sticker off of it, but they sold it as, somebody who made it, right? Like, but it was that story behind it a lot of the times, and understanding where it came from. But then there was also the people in town that I know that she got her honey from, and she knew where that honey comes from. She knew where those bees went. She knew what field they were in, and that to her was everything. And to me now, that stuff makes, it resonates with me on things like that. And, like glass over tea kettle, meeting the artist, like I met Taiki's dad and I fell in love with his glass. 100% fell. I've got pieces of it right here sitting beside me. And a lot of it was because, he lives a mile down the road from me, and it's, to me, it's the most beautiful glass, stuff that it's my style, but it also means something, so it's that making that personal connection no matter what it is, I think. Does that make sense, Kimberly? I don't think we answered your question, but I hope that it kind of helps get to some ideas, I guess.
Yeah, and then ways to ask the questions too, which is really important. Yeah, at this point, I think my pricing is my pricing. It works out pretty good, but we'll see if things change as I add more products or more sizes and things like that. But,
yeah, and I think the things on this slide are, ask those questions that you get the answers that you need. And again, this all goes back to thinking about the EforAll and how this session is taught. It seems like everybody just comes away with it is a chore or a task or an assignment, and you really need to think about what those questions are, asking the who, what, when, where, how, why people spend their money, or what they need, or how they do it. Having that conversation versus just a questionnaire, you can get so much more out of that conversation. And then 100% of the past performance predicts future behavior. What have you spent? How have you done that? Why did you do that? Those things, rather than the pie in the sky, oh yes, I'd love to do that, versus have you actually done it?
Well, one of the things I think that's different for an existing business, if you go back just one slide for just a second, is that people are already your customers and they already like you. And you can ask them questions in a safe way that is kind of different than when it's would you buy? Because they did buy. And now if you're thinking about product extensions or different directions, it's a safer space than it is when you're brand new.
100%. And I think that goes a long way to, if you're going to expand your line, or if you're going to expand your pricing, or you're going to offer a new location, those people that have been buying from you in the past have that relationship. They have that, they've come back. Even if they haven't come back and they are a first-time buyer, Like sometimes that is enough. They spent the money the first time. What's going to make them come back? What drove them to buy this time? What were the drivers behind that decision? Because that could make the difference of just having that conversation with them to see what would bring them back. So always something interesting to think about.
I don't know about you, but when I buy almost anything or go to a store or go to my doctor's office, I get a post whatever it was survey. Sometimes they're really annoying about asking me the questions, but this drive to make sure that they were on track the first time, in my mind, is a good consumer trend.
And that's my life. Like that is what I do. And those questionnaires and those surveys to me are my lifeblood. That's how I know that my team is doing well. That's how I know that the offering that we're doing is right. That's how I know the things I'm measuring are actually effective. And so 100%, those surveys are a joke in so many minds, but they're also like the lifeblood of so many else. And as a small business owner, the more information you have, knowledge is power and knowledge is money. So what happens when we're not surveying, right? So that specialization relevance changes. Like we have that specialty, we have that kombucha in a specific the glass bottle. Well, all of a sudden nobody wants the glass bottles anymore, but oh crap, I've been trying to save my soul to make them into the glass bottles, right? So if we're not surveying, we're not necessarily knowing that that's out there and happening. The product requirements don't meet our customers' needs. I'm going to tell you a true story about me last week. So last week, we have been working on a new offering for our customers where it's specific to the industry, but it's a way for an insurance agent to see their line of business and everything that they have in it. And it's something that we are offering that is unique. It's for them to have real time over all of their business, what they see. They gave us their requirements. We built it. We were so happy. We presented it to them. It fell flat on its face. Like they just ripped us up, not like in a bad way, but just like our hearts just got ripped out from under us because we didn't understand the requirements. Like the product requirements were not exactly it. So it's not like the end of the world. It's why we presented it to them halfway through the process rather than at the end going, surprise, and they go, but it's disheartening and it hurts and it's hard, but it's like one of those things that I would rather know now so that I can go pivot and change what those requirements were. And to be honest, almost half of the things were their requirements changed to us. So just in the time that we gathered the requirements to the time that we presented it halfway through the process before we could present the end product, it changed and they needed something different. So, that's the other reason why it's an iterative process. It keeps happening over and over. You need to keep checking in and touching base and always finding out. Falling behind on market changes and industry advances. So, again, this goes back to what Deborah said at the very beginning is why would I need to keep doing this? It's because things change and markets change and industry changes. Advancements happen all the time. So I need to know whether, to go back to the kombucha, whether there are can types that I can reseal or that will, handle, are there plastic types that are coming out that can handle the pressure of that. So, those types of things. And then if your delivery is too slow and the competition swoops in, I've worked so long to come up with this, but now the world has changed and I wasn't ready for it. And, those are the things that can happen if we're not doing those surveys in time.
I also am going to tell a little story on myself because this was when I was a business coach before I started running the EforAll Berkshire County. I did one of those 360 things where you send out to your clients and things. And the things that I thought people valued about me as a consultant were not what they told me they valued. And it was so interesting to see from other people's point of view. So glass over tea kettle may think that what people are valuing is the artisanship, the colors, but it might be something else entirely. I don't know what it is. Is it stained glass as a replacement for a real plant, or this is the perfect house gift, or you're in on a trend with stained. I don't have no idea what I'm talking about now. But here's the thing: until you find out from your customers, you can't find more customers who value that, because you're selling maybe not what they're really buying. They might buy your product, but what they value about that product might be different than what you think. And just to complete the story, I thought I was a great teacher. And what people told me was, yeah, I'm a good teacher, but I'm a better facilitator. They love that by my asking provocative questions that I unearthed stuff that they already knew. And it's like, wow, that's really interesting. I never thought about that before. And you don't, because you're all caught up in what it is you sell and what you think you produce. And when you listen to the customer, you find out something else. So be open to that, and be open to it all the time. So, Kimberly, I think, had to drop off for a second, but maybe the organic coconut isn't as important to them as the fact that she's the one who makes the chocolate. I don't really know, but until she asks the question, she won't know either.
No, 100%. And I'm telling you also, those 360s are, as a leader, it works the same for leadership, for business, for anything. Is I find so much out of those that just surprises me all the time. And each new company that I go to and each new team member that I work with, I always find differently. And again, that is all back to my point of constantly asking, because you're always going to get different answers, so I love that. So this is my last slide. And the thing that I wanted to leave with is, here's the things that we should keep surveying for. Our demographics. Are the demographics that we think we're going after the right ones? And, constantly trying to figure that out. Even if you're selling online and you can try to identify as they're buying where they heard from you, how old are they, where do they live, and are they buying it for a gift, or are they buying it for themselves? Those simple types of things fall right into what we were just talking about. Customer loyalty, survey for that. What's going to keep them coming back? Just because they bought that first time may have been a specific gift for a specific person, but what will keep them coming back for it again? Finding out what new features or product offerings that people want. Are you selling something, like the chocolate caramels with the coconut? If it were dark chocolate, would they want it just as bad? Would they be willing to pay more for dark chocolate, or something like that? Competition analysis. This is huge, of knowing what your competitors are doing, even if they're not in your specific market. What is your competition? Pricing, always trying to figure out, is my pricing right? Do I need to change my pricing? Is it too high, too low? If I change something, how much should I price it for? And then lastly, the customer service. Am I offering the type of, customer service that my customers are expecting? If I wrapped my chocolates in a different wrapper, would that matter? If I presented it in a different way when you were buying it in a store, would that catch your eye better? Those are the reasons why I was saying, what brought you to my table when you had 50 others that you walked by? What was it about mine? And if you didn't buy, perfectly fine, but maybe it caught their attention, just not enough to buy it because it wasn't specific to them, but it did catch their eye. So, you've at least got something going there. So those are, these are all the slides that I had just to start conversations, and then I'd love to continue.
Yeah.
On.
So Aron, you can stop sharing. That was so helpful. I also want to point out that once you get this survey information, it's not the end. It's the beginning. What did you learn? And what are you going to do about it? If you find out you have lousy customer service, improve it. If you find that they're not coming back, did you collect their email address and send them a thank you and give them a coupon for their next purchase? Email marketing, it helps build loyalty. So these are data points to help you understand what's going on in your business, and it gives you the opportunity to then take action and make things better. Just knowing it isn't as useful as implementing it and using it in a smart way. So Allison, I think we can stop the recording piece. And